Self-focus creates alignment. When you stop chasing, the world begins to chase you. There comes a moment in every person's life when they feel an internal shift, small, subtle, almost invisible to the outside world, yet powerful enough to transform the entire future. That moment is the realization that your value doesn't increase by sending another text, another paragraph, another explanation. Your value increases the moment you decide to stop pouring your energy into spaces that do not return it. This message is simple, but not easy. Never text them again. Trust me on this. Not out of bitterness, not out of ego, but out of clarity. Because clarity demands discipline, and discipline demands that you stop engaging in cycles that constantly diminish your sense of self. People think strength is in holding on. It isn't. Strength is in letting go before you collapse. Strength is not begging someone to see what you already know is undeniable: your loyalty, your love, your sincerity. Strength is pulling yourself back, saying nothing and allowing silence. To speak a truth your words were never strong enough to deliver. And here's the fundamental reality most avoid. When you stop texting someone who gives you breadcrumbs, you are not losing them. You are reclaiming yourself. You must understand something timeless and brutally honest. Human beings respond to what they respect, not what they can exploit. If they know you will always text back, if they know you will always reach out first, if they know you will always make the effort, even when they don't, then they will never rise to meet you. Why would they? You've already shown them they don't need to. Silence forces truth to the surface. Silence reorganizes power dynamics. Silence reveals whether someone values you or merely uses your presence as background noise. You don't stop texting them because you hate them. You stop because you love yourself enough to understand that your emotional energy needs to be protected, not squandered. Most people don't realize the cost of chasing. Every time you send a text trying to understand why someone became distant, you lose a piece of your dignity. Every time you seek closure from someone who benefits from your confusion, you place your self-worth in the hands of someone unqualified to hold it. Every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't genuinely care, you train your mind to believe that your feelings require permission. Stop giving people access to your heart through a device that vibrates in your pocket. Stop lowering your standards to maintain connections that weaken you. Stop being loyal to someone who is casual with you. You need to stand up straight internally first. And that starts with a decision. I will no longer text someone who makes me feel like an option. Because here's the truth. Life rewards those who walk away from what insults their worth. Life elevates those who refuse to stay where they are not respected. Life strengthens the person who chooses self-respect over emotional chaos. You are not meant to be chasing people. You are meant to be built yourself, your mind, your discipline, your purpose, your integrity. When you do that, the right people come naturally. They meet you at your level. They don't need reminders. They don't need convincing. They don't need explanation. So ask yourself, why do you want someone who doesn't want you back with the same enthusiasm? Why do you give loyalty to someone who treats you like a break-time distraction? Why do you insist on keeping communication alive when the relationship is already dead? The world doesn't change when you send another message. The world changes when you decide you deserve better than that message. Never texting them again is not about them. It's about you, your discipline, your emotional maturity, your identity, your future. And listen carefully. When you remove yourself from someone's life, you allow reality to confront them. They either step forward or they disappear. Either way, you win, because you get the truth. And truth is the foundation of peace. Peace is the foundation of power. Power is the foundation of becoming who you are meant to be. Stop chasing people. Chase your potential. Chase your purpose. Chase the version of yourself that doesn't need to beg for attention or affection. Never text them again. Not to prove a point, but to build a life where you don't need them anymore. That is strength. That is transformation. That is self-respect in its purest form. And when you finally understand that, you don't lose people, you lose your weakness. And that is the greatest gain of all. Self-respect begins where overcommunication ends. Silence is a boundary, not a punishment. There is a moment in every person's life when they must confront a simple yet brutal truth. The more you explain yourself to someone who doesn't value you, the more you diminish your own identity. People don't lose respect all at once. It fades each time you send another unnecessary message. Each time you over-explain. Each time you try to justify your presence to someone who barely acknowledges it. The decay begins silently, just like dignity does, when you hand over your self-worth for temporary reassurance. Silence is not a strategy meant to manipulate anyone. Silence is a declaration. It states, clearly and without apology, that you are not willing to negotiate your value. It tells the world that your attention is earned, not taken for granted. And yet so many people fear silence because they confuse it with rejection, when in reality, silence is the birthplace of self-respect. It's the space where you reclaim your center without external noise threatening to pull you off balance. The problem with overcommunication is simple. It teaches people that you are always available emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. When you respond instantly, explain endlessly, or chase clarity from someone who doesn't even offer effort, you send the message that they can treat you casually and still receive your full commitment. That is the death of power. Power cannot exist where boundaries are denied, and boundaries cannot exist where silence is feared. Silence is not cowardice. It is the voice of someone who knows their worth. When you stop over-communicating, you stop giving discounts on your emotional energy. You stop handing out explanations to people who haven't earned the right to hear your truth. You stop trying to make someone understand what they never cared to ask about in the first place. And suddenly, something shifts, not in them, but in you. You begin to see that the world does not collapse when you stop messaging someone. Your identity does not dissolve when you choose not to defend yourself. Your value does not decrease because someone cannot see it. You start to recognize that silence brings clarity, while overcommunication brings confusion and insecurity. The more you talk, the more you justify, the more you chase, the more you shrink, and eventually, you don't recognize yourself anymore because you've spent so much time trying to be understood by someone who never intended to understand you. But silence reverses that. Silence rebuilds you. It forces you to face yourself, your patterns, your fears, your strengths. It demands that you stand on your own feet without needing someone else's attention to stabilize you. Silence is uncomfortable at first because it exposes everything you've been avoiding, but discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Growth rarely speaks. It almost always begins in stillness. When you stop over-communicating, you force others to reveal their intentions. If someone cares, they will step forward. If they don't, silence will expose them. And that exposure is a gift. It saves you years of emotional effort wasted on the wrong people. It protects you from living a life where you constantly give more than you receive. It redirects you back to yourself, your purpose, your path, your potential. Remember this. People will respect the boundaries you enforce, not the explanations you give. A boundary explained repeatedly becomes a plea. A boundary protected silently becomes a law. And those who truly value you will honor it. Those who don't will remove themselves. Either outcome is liberation. Some will say, but if I don't speak up, they won't understand my perspective. That thought is the trap. Someone who wants to understand you will ask. Someone who values you will notice your silence. Someone who cares will step in without needing a reminder. Energy naturally flows toward what it considers important. If theirs is not flowing toward you, forcing it through words will not change anything. You cannot communicate your way into someone's priorities. They have to choose you voluntarily. Your responsibility is not to make people value you. Your responsibility is to value yourself loudly enough through boundaries, through silence, through self-respect that no one is confused about how you expect to be treated. Silence is not about shutting others out. It's about letting your actions speak with the weight your words no longer need to carry. When you stop over-communicating, you stop negotiating with your dignity. You stop begging for clarity. You stop chasing closure. You stop needing approval. And that is when you begin to stand tall, not because someone validated you, but because you validated yourself. You will never regret choosing silence over desperation. You will never regret choosing self-respect over impulse. You will never regret choosing clarity over chaos. But you will regret shrinking yourself to keep a connection alive. You will regret begging for attention. You will regret explaining your worth to someone too distracted to notice. So let silence do what overcommunication never could: expose truth. Build respect. Protect your soul, and guide you back to the version of yourself who refuses to settle for anything less than reciprocity, clarity, and dignity. Your silence is not empty. It is full of self-respect. Walking away is not weakness. It is the highest form of self-discipline and identity. Too often, we confuse courage with persistence. We believe that staying, fighting, explaining, and compromising endlessly is proof of strength. It is not. True strength is measured not by how long you cling to what diminishes you, but by the moment you recognize that clinging is unnecessary. Walking away is not weakness. It is an assertion of your boundaries, a declaration of your values, and a reclamation of your own power. Every time you remain in situations, relationships, or conversations that drain you, you are slowly, eroding your sense of self. You convince yourself that persistence will lead to change, but most often it leads only to exhaustion and resentment. Walking away is not giving up. It is choosing yourself. It is choosing clarity over chaos, discipline over impulse, and identity over illusion. The world will try to make you feel guilty for leaving. People will label you selfish or harsh. They will whisper that a strong person never abandons anyone. But here is the reality. The strongest people do not fight battles that are meaningless. The strongest people do not sacrifice their integrity for temporary comfort or approval. The strongest people walk away from what does not serve their growth, even when it hurts, even when it is inconvenient, even when everyone else thinks they should stay. Walking away is an act of discipline. It requires a mind trained to resist the urge for immediate validation. It requires a self-control to ignore the pull of nostalgia, hope, or fear of loneliness. Discipline is not just about what you endure. It is also about what you refuse. Every time you step back, instead of giving in to destructive patterns, you train your mind, your heart, and your spirit to recognize what is truly valuable. Walking away also defines your identity. Who you are is not determined by the people who accept you or the relationships you maintain out of obligation. Your identity is forged in the moments when you choose to honor yourself over convenience, authenticity over pretense. When you refuse to compromise your values, you are not turning your back on life, you are walking toward yourself. You are creating a life in which your presence is never transactional and your worth is never negotiable. Many misunderstand walking away because they fear loss. They think that leaving means giving up something irreplaceable. The truth is that walking away often brings clarity and reveals what is truly meant for you. It removes the noise, exposes the false, and highlights what is real. People who belong in your life will make space. Opportunities aligned with your purpose will appear. Walking away clears room for growth that would have been impossible while you were tethered to stagnation. Consider the emotional energy that is wasted in futile attempts to force someone or something to meet you halfway. That energy could be invested in creating yourself, developing your skills, strengthening your mind, deepening your self-awareness, and building the life you deserve. Walking away is the conscious decision to redirect the energy where it yields results, where it is respected, where it is valued. It is the ultimate act of self-investment. Walking away does not happen in a moment of anger or frustration. It is the culmination of self-reflection, self-respect, and foresight. It is the recognition that continuing to engage with what diminishes you is a slow erosion of your potential. And while walking away may feel lonely at first, it is far better to stand alone in integrity than to be surrounded by compromise and mediocrity. Solitude becomes strength when it is chosen with purpose, not forced by circumstance. You will face voices that say, "Don't leave, fight for it. Don't give up." But listen carefully, not everything worth fighting for is yours to fight. Some battles are tests of endurance, and some are tests of wisdom. Walking away is not surrender, it is discernment. It is understanding that your time, energy, and focus are finite and that not everything deserves a place in your life. Choosing wisely, even when it is difficult, is the true mark of strength. Walking away also teaches others how to treat you. It communicates, without words, that you are not defined by what people give you, they are defined by how they honor your presence. Boundaries enforced through action are far more powerful than words repeated endlessly. You do not need to explain. You do not need to justify. You do not need to plead. The act of leaving says enough. I know my worth, and I will not settle for less. In the end, walking away is a reclaiming of your freedom. Freedom from compromise that erodes your integrity. Freedom from patterns that stifle your growth. Freedom from people who fail to recognize your value. It is the conscious creation of a life where your attention, energy, and love are given only where they are reciprocated. It is the ultimate expression of self-discipline, the clearest statement of identity, and the truest demonstration of strength. Walking away is not weakness. Walking away is power. Walking away is clarity. Walking away is growth. And when you embrace it fully, you step into a life defined not by what you tolerate, but by what you demand, and demand wisely. Your emotional energy is currency. Spend it only where it returns value. We live in a world where attention is constantly demanded, where connection is often taken for granted, and where people treat our patience, our care, and our feelings as if they are limitless. But emotional energy is not infinite. It is currency. And just like any currency, it must be spent wisely, invested with care, and protected from waste. Every text sent in desperation, every moment sacrificed for someone who doesn't reciprocate, every thought consumed by someone who doesn't deserve it, Is money leaving your hands without any return? Most people are unaware of how much they give away. They pour themselves into relationships, conversations, and situations that drain without enriching. They chase people who are indifferent, fixate on outcomes that are meaningless, and exhaust themselves trying to justify their worth. And in doing so, they bankrupt their own spirit. Emotional energy lost cannot be retrieved. Once spent on someone who doesn't value it, it is gone. There is no refund. There is no recovery. The first principle of preserving your energy is awareness. Recognize where your attention is going. Recognize who and what is consuming your emotional resources without reciprocity. Awareness alone will change the trajectory of your interactions. It will force you to confront uncomfortable truths that some people will never meet you halfway, that some relationships are one-sided, and that some efforts are simply wasted. And awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your currency. The second principle is boundaries. Boundaries are not punishments. Boundaries are not tools of control. Boundaries are investments in yourself. When you refuse to respond instantly, when you refuse to over-explain, when you refuse to chase someone who does not value your effort, you are protecting the integrity of your energy. Every time you allow someone to overdraw from your emotional bank, you weaken yourself. Every time you stand firm in your limits, you reinforce your strength. The third principle is selectivity. Not everyone deserves your energy. Not every argument deserves your time. Not every situation deserves your reaction. Invest your emotions where they are matched, where they are returned, where they have impact. A conversation with someone who dismisses your feelings, a relationship that drains rather than nourishes, or an attachment that depletes rather than elevates. These are expenses with no return. Do not spend your energy there. Emotional energy spent wisely creates power. Power does not come from being constantly available to everyone's demands. Power comes from selectively engaging in matters, people, and projects that align with your purpose, that honor your values, and that respect your presence. The strongest people are not those who try to please everyone. The strongest people are those who choose carefully where to invest their attention and their feeling. Do not underestimate the cost of emotional overextension. Every hour spent worrying about someone who doesn't care, every moment fretting over someone who refuses to reciprocate, is energy stolen from your life. That energy could be used to create, to grow, to build, to improve yourself, to achieve what others only dream of. Energy spent unwisely is opportunity lost. Energy preserved is opportunity multiplied. When you treat your emotional energy as currency, you begin to make decisions differently. You stop texting first when the effort is not mutual. You stop explaining yourself when the understanding is absent. You stop sacrificing your peace for temporary attention. You no longer tolerate behavior that devalues your worth, because you understand that every investment has a return. And if the return is zero, the transaction is meaningless. This also applies to your mental space. Thoughts that revolve endlessly around someone who does not appreciate you are depths of attention you owe to no one but yourself. Rumination, anxiety, and obsession are taxes that drain your energy. Protect your mind as you protect your heart. Do not spend cognitive resources on people or situations that will not reward them. Your mental clarity is a form of currency as valuable as emotional energy, and it must be safeguarded. When you begin to treat your emotional energy as currency, you will see life differently. You will recognize that relationships are not obligations, that attention is a gift, that love and loyalty are not infinite resources to be depleted by those who do not respect them. You will learn to value yourself enough to walk away when the expenditure outweighs the return and to invest where the return is meaningful. This is not selfishness, it is wisdom. It is maturity. It is the act of self-preservation that all strong, successful, and focused people understand. Your energy is too valuable to be given to those who do not see it. Your time is too precious to be wasted on people who cannot reciprocate. Your attention is too powerful to be diluted by anyone who cannot match it. So guard it, invest it, spend it wisely. Make choices that honor your emotional economy. Refuse to give it away, casually, impulsively, or repeatedly to people who do not deserve it. Let your energy flow where it builds, where it creates, where it transforms, where it multiplies. Your emotional energy is currency, and the wealthiest, most powerful, and most resilient individuals are those who understand its value and spend it with precision, purpose, and discipline. Protect it, and life will repay you in ways you never imagined. When you stop trying to be chosen, life forces you to become worthy of choosing yourself. Too many people spend their lives seeking validation from others. They chase approval, desperately trying to be noticed, selected, or acknowledged. They bend, they adjust. They diminish themselves to fit into spaces where they are not fully valued. And in doing so, they forget the most fundamental principle of life. The only person you must be worthy of choosing is yourself. When you stop trying to be chosen by those who cannot see your value, you create the conditions for real growth. You stop expending energy on validation that is unreliable, fleeting, and often meaningless. You stop molding yourself to satisfy standards that do not belong to you. And in that absence of external validation, something remarkable happens. You are confronted with yourself. And that confrontation is where transformation begins. Life does not reward those who are passive in pursuit of recognition. Life does not hand success, respect, or love to those who simply wait for others to pick them. Life rewards the ones who stand alone, the ones who refuse to compromise their integrity, the ones who build themselves from the inside out. When you stop trying to be chosen, you are forced to cultivate your own value, your own skills, your own identity, so that no one's choice defines your worth. The pursuit of being chosen creates dependency. It trains your mind to rely on the opinions and decisions of others for validation. It conditions your emotions to fluctuate based on acceptance or rejection. And in that cycle, you lose touch with your own needs, your own voice, your own standards. You surrender your power to people who are under no obligation to appreciate it. But when you stop seeking external selection, you reclaim that power. You learn that your approval of yourself is the foundation upon which every other relationship, opportunity, and success must be built. Being chosen by others is unreliable. People will come and go. Circumstances will shift. Opinions will change. If your sense of self is tied to these fluctuations, you will always be at the mercy of forces outside your control. But choosing yourself is permanent. Choosing yourself creates consistency. Choosing yourself forces you to honor your principles, to define your boundaries, and to invest in your potential without compromise. When you stop trying to be chosen, life forces you to build competence, character, and resilience. You begin to develop skills not to impress anyone, but to expand your own capabilities. You cultivate confidence not to be admired, but to trust yourself. You strengthen your discipline not to meet someone else's expectations, but to meet your own. In this process, the need for external approval fades because you are too occupied with mastering yourself to rely on anyone else's judgment. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. This is maturity. This is the recognition that your worth is not something to be handed out or debated. It is something to be earned daily by your own choices, your own efforts, and your own growth. When you stop trying to be chosen, you stop living reactively and start living proactively. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's decision. You are in command of your own life. The irony is that when you stop trying to be chosen, life naturally aligns you with people, opportunities, and experiences that recognize your value without coercion. When you cultivate yourself, you attract the right relationships, the right careers, and the right circumstances. You are no longer chasing scraps of attention. You are creating a life in which your presence is recognized because it matters, not because it is convenient. Choosing yourself also teaches discernment. You learn to recognize who deserves your time, your effort, and your trust. You no longer waste energy on relationships or situations that are unbalanced or exploitative. You begin to understand that the people, opportunities, and experiences that matter will align with your value rather than demand you compromise it. And in this alignment, life becomes simpler, clearer, and more powerful. There is a profound freedom in becoming worthy of yourself. You no longer live under the weight of others' approval. You no longer bend to fit expectations that are not yours. You no longer compromise your integrity for acceptance. Every decision, every action, every choice is guided by your own standards, your own vision, and your own worth. And when you operate from this place, the quality of your life transforms entirely. Stop seeking to be chosen. Stop bending to fit someone else's vision of who you should be. Stop trying to earn attention from those who cannot see it. Instead, invest in yourself, cultivate your abilities, strengthen your character, and honor your principles. Become the person you would choose if you were the one in charge. When you reach that point, life stops requiring you to be selected. It begins reflecting the person you have chosen to become. When you choose yourself, you become unstoppable, you become clear, you become unshakable. And in that state, everything external to people, opportunities, and recognition arrives naturally, not because you begged for it, but because you built yourself into someone worthy of it. Stop trying to be chosen. Start choosing yourself. And in choosing yourself, you create a life where respect, success, and love are not gifts. They are inevitable reflections of the value you have cultivated.